In our process of awakening, there are different aspects of our being that get changed from awakening experiences. Our relationship to our thoughts changes, our relationship to our emotions, our experience of sensation in the body, and what I would call awareness changes, or our relationship to our awareness. So I'd call the primary awakening experience for me primarily to do with awareness, specifically being aware that awareness is always present. So it's awareness of awareness. Now that ends up changing my relationship to my, or rather it doesn't end up changing, but it involves a different relationship to my thoughts, emotions, and sensation in my body. And even my visual field and maybe auditory effects. It'll be different for you than it is for me. I've recently had a peak awakening experience, and as there's a slipping down to a higher baseline from it, I find there's an effort or a struggle that ensues to get back there, to climb up the mountain, to grasp that deeper realization. And there comes a point where I'm actually screwing myself over by doing that. Because the way I'm trying to grasp, first of all, it's not about grasping. It can't be forced. It's not about effort or laziness. That's the tricky part. That's the tricky part. And that's why it's hard to teach. Because our mind's used to either or scenarios. And this is, the clear way is more about an indescribable relationship to the paradox, to a duality. One word that can come close is floating. So in my experience, this efforting's happening, and I know by now from peak states and awakening experiences that this efforting is a red flag. So there are other aspects of my being that can be tuned into to nurture a higher baseline. For me, a big one is tuning into the sensation of the soles of my feet. There's a confirmation that that's a helpful move too, because my belly opens up, my breathing. And a settledness comes in. My thoughts reduce a bit. I'm more peaceful. Like when the awakened realization is here. You see, awakening is not just a change of state, it's a realization. Meditation, martial arts, traditional martial arts, these are training the system for this state that accompanies the realization. However, awakening, I would say from my experience, is a realization. And you could also say it's a combination. It's a realization and it's a certain state or permanent state, not just a temporary state. It's a physiological experience as well as recognition. So, when the recognition starts appearing to be elusive, which also is an illusion, because it's ever present, although the awareness of this ever presentness can cannot be experienced. And so when that starts to happen, which I call sliding down the mountain, instead of efforting and getting out of my body and starting my head starting to try for it, to try to attain it again, to try to reason through what is that recognition, how do I recognize that again, I can settle into my body, settle into the experience that accompanied the realization. So the realization was accompanied by more attunement and living in my sensations. So when the recognition, the realization gets more elusive, then as a primary lived experience, then one can go into, say, the body sensation. And this provides a good template to work with in the meantime. And this provides a fertile ground for a spontaneous recognition down the road, or right now, or right now, or right now. And the key word here is trust, or faith. That's how it shows up for me anyway. This will depend on your Enneagram type probably too. So whatever the sort of higher virtue for your Enneagram type is, you'll probably resonate with that. So me as a 6, the higher virtue is something like trust or faith, with a capital T, capital F. And that just happens to be obvious to me, but because I know the Enneagram, I understand that that might not be the experience of other people. There might be a different term there, a different sort of virtue that's alive, that sustains. Because for me, it's like there's a forgetting of the recognition or losing it, the truth is that it's always present, and that is understood. And so it requires trust that even though I don't have it here right now, or I find myself getting lost or identified or caught up in something in the world, in my thoughts, in the story of me as a person, which is actually just a collection of thoughts. Trust is a virtue that allows me to feel this experience in my body again. Even without the recognition, I'm experiencing the experience in my body. And it's actually quite uncomfortable if not accompanied by the recognition, because it's like boundarylessness. It's like falling. It's like nausea. It's like heartbreak. It's like grief. And those are all really painful when I'm being my personality, because it feels like I'm breaking down. I've really lost something. I'm really not worthy or okay. I'm really not okay. And I'm not going to be okay. It's what the experience of the personality is. And that's because subconscious material is released with awakening experiences. Because if there's no personality container that I am, and there is nothing, no one thing, one shape that I am, then anything goes. And a lot of subconscious material that was not allowed to be here, a lot of feelings, a lot of possible futures that my mind was keeping out. Like, no, I don't want to look at that. Those are here. Those come. And then when the personality container starts to get identified with again, well, there's a lot of things that are not really fitting in the container, and yet they're conscious. And so there's a lot of pain, fear, like I said, grief, loss, not okayness that's experienced. It's all just to do with misidentifying as this small container I call the personality. There's no problem once I recognize that there is no personality container that's an identity, it's just thoughts. Then yeah, there's no problem with those feelings, and they get processed very smoothly. So far, at least. So in summary, with awakening, there's different levels of awareness and the human organism that correlate with each other, and these can be attended to, these can be trained, these can be have certain patterns ingrained in them, certain capabilities, certain work done with them that assist us in building a foundation for when the recognition comes again and sort of deepens and the regularity of it deepens. The big mistake, which I've made, is to have a giant awakening experience with drugs, without drugs, whatever it is for you, and to then realize, oh, everything's okay. And now I'm just going to do whatever I want, as whatever the ego wants, because it's okay. I'm not judging myself as much anymore. That's a mistake. That's a mistake, and you can cause suffering to others and yourself with that. Because now you have and this is the risk of psychedelics too, because now you have an ego that's liberated and inflated, and there's a certain healthy shame and healthy humility that the ego must have if it's to act sort of appropriately or compassionately, not cause suffering to others excessively. And yeah, things like 5-MeO or Bufo, like without much integration or without a meditation practice, specifically without meditation as a practice, there can be just an ego run amok after that. In good, there's good aspects to that, very much, and aspects where that can harm others or oneself. And that was my experience. With awakening experiences with Bufo and without, through self-inquiry. And it would have all been great if I had an established meditation practice. I will say that, even just 15 minutes a day, just maybe even 10 minutes a day, maybe even 5 minutes a day. Like, just to sit down and have that pause and let that recognition come through again and refresh me. So that's why you have a lot of people who have done a lot of psychedelics and they're assholes. They act inappropriately. They act with low integrity. These kind of situations that we can witness happen because there's not a regular meditation practice, or yeah, I mean, they're not tuning in with that experience and the truth of it again. It just affected their ego. Their ego's like, I'm good. I love being me. Let's go. And it's just a more powerful ego. For better and for worse. We've got to have a daily meditation practice. And not just we've got to have, it's like that's gonna launch us. It's not like something we got to do. It's if we want to, if we care about awakening, then that's it's really gonna serve us and boost us. So that's all for today. Wishing you all very well. Bye.